This is Steve, Dichroic Glass Man. On the previous video, or if you haven't seen it, it's a video on soldering where I soldered the face of this panel. Well, we had a cavity right here where I had a dichroic jewel that was so thick. Look how thick that is. We're talking probably 5/8 of an inch. It's not practical to solder it with the rest of the window because something can happen. Something can go wrong if you don't take care of this in the proper way. And what I want to show is that if you take your high peak jewels and leave the cavity where they belong and come back and solder them when the window is finished, you're going to be much better off. So let's look at that idea. I got a huge jewel. It's copper foiled. Just a giant big thing. And you'll notice here there's space underneath. See how that X-Acto blade is showing? And the reason being is because the backside is soldered as well. And when that does, it lifts the glass off the table by the height of the solder underneath. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my jewel into the cavity. Flux it. And now I'm going to solder it into place. I'm taking steel wool and cleaning off my iron off to the side here. Grabbing my solder. It's a high wall too, and I expect some of it to drop through, and that's fine. To the bottom side. That doesn't matter. Straighten that out in just a bit. I'm going to flux it again all the way around, and then I'm going to have to solder the back. And so just from this point right here, this should be a benefit for those who are afraid to use high peak jewels, even though they're beautiful. I have seen some high peaked round jewels in leaded windows that are incredible. Very high tall, very high peaked. Amazingly difficult if you were to do this application, unless you did what I'm doing here, whereas you wait to the end of the project. My iron got so hot, I was doing something else, so plug it back in. Cooperating nicely now. And because this is such a extreme situation here, calls for some more solder putzing, as I call it. Just kind of messing around and making sure that it's exactly what I want. And I'm not going to show how I solder the back because it's pretty much cut and dry. Although, one point you want to remember, the thing we were talking about to begin with is we've got a high peaked jewel. How are we going to turn this over and solder the back when this thing is so high versus the rest of the panel? It's almost like a huge mountain peak. Let's turn my camera around and go from a different angle. Holy moly. There we go. So the thing I want to encourage you is to get a carpet or rug or heavy duty blanket, and what you're going to want to do is put that underneath your panel so that that peak is absorbed in that heavy texture. Or You could put some furring strips, some wood in other words, under there. Let's see, I'll see if I can't find an example here. I'm soldering. You don't have to use a blanket. We can improvise. There's many things we can do. Trying to get that just so. I'm very meticulous about my soldering. Besides that, I love it. Not the meticulousness, but I love soldering. Got a little bit too much over there. There. Just about content with this. Looking where I can even it up. I hope you're having a good day today. Crazy weather here in Asheville, North Carolina. Just about where I want it. Looking good. Okay, if I was to imagine, let's see, without moving my camera and such, but let's just say that this ruler is going to represent a piece of furring strip, a piece of wood, perhaps 1 inch tall. You get the idea, or 2x4s. Just put a couple of them underneath your panel. Let's get it back up here. Let's back the camera up. Let's get a better idea what we're talking about here. Let's just say that these rulers represent pieces of wood. As you can see, I've now got 3 of them involved here. But if you were to lift up the panel, turn it over so that the peak is not touching the board, but is determined by the height of these guys, then I think you get the point. At least this point, this peak, is not resting right on the table, and you're able to do a nice solder job on the back side. It's kind of difficult, and the same thing holds true when you wash the panel. You really want to take care, because if you press down in the area too hard, cleaning it, patina, polishing, steel wool, doesn't matter what, you can possibly break a piece of glass, especially right here. Here's a weak one. Glass wants to go to the point of least resistance. It's not going to break this way straight across. It's just going to break right there. Tink! Right across. Tink! That's what it does. That ugly noise that us glass artists become familiar with. When you hear that solder pop from the heat soldering, and you might have a scratch on the glass, or you didn't realize you had a score on it and you forgot to run it out, and then when you soldered it, the solder heated up that weakness, and you hear that little distinctive high-pitched noise, dink, and that's, oh no, that puts that little gut ache in your stomach. I've had that happen a few times. So anyway, if you got some towels, are the best thing, or a blanket, just solder this on a blanket that you can wash, and maybe you have a piece of carpet padding. That's what I generally use, and then the jewel will absorb in that carpet padding or the blanket or such, or just put some props underneath the glass like 2x4s or furring strips, and you'll be just fine. That way you can deal with these high peak jewels all the time, and then the jewel is not resting on the board, causing an uneven teetering possibility where a surrounding piece of glass can break, and you're good to go. Hey, I hope this works for you. Just an idea. Thanks a lot. Follow me on Facebook, Dichroic Glassman. Bye-bye.